Module 1 begins the training by giving us a basic foundation for our teaching going forward. It provides us with a framework, a structure that we can then apply everything that we learn from every following module into. So we have some place to plug in a better understanding of pranayama, some place to plug in a more developed experience with mantra, so on and so forth. So we build ourselves a really lovely structure of teaching methodology. This teaching methodology is called Vinyasa Krama. Okay, so it can be a little bit confusing to label what it is that we do. So I'll give you some, but at the same time, don't get too caught up with it because no one out there really understands what these labels mean anyway. But it's Tantric Hatha that uses the teaching modality of Vinyasa Krama. And we will definitely look at what each of those individual words mean and how they come together to help us get a basic understanding and ideally convey an understanding of the orientation for our practice. Vinyasa Krama basically translates to wise progression. Nyasa, so vinyasa. Nyasa means to place, and to place intentionally. And vi, as a prefix for a Sanskrit word, can mean one of two things, usually the opposite of or the best of. In this case, this is the best possible way to place. So it's wisely placing in a krama, in a progression. So concise way of saying that, a wise progression. And Vinyasa Krama is our methodology specifically for sequencing, for creating practices, whether those are practices for ourselves or for our students. Before I go too far, I just want to mention that yes, Vinyasa Krama applies to an individual practice, whether that's a 30-minute, 60-minute, 75, 90-minute practice. We utilize Vinyasa Krama to create the most meaningful, specific experience possible. Additionally, Vinyasa Krama can be applied for a longer term experience. For example, I utilize Vinyasa Krama when I'm putting together each individual weekend of this training. I look to the art and science of Vinyasa Krama when I created the entire 16 months of this training. When I'm planning a retreat, I use Vinyasa Krama to help me figure out how do I want this retreat to progress, to flow, to facilitate what Vinyasa Krama gives us access to, which is this quality of alchemy. So alchemy could be understood as a spiritual transformation, something which allows us to take ourselves and or our students from where we currently are to a better place. That can be done in any number of ways, but it requires specificity, it requires efficiency, and it requires intentionality. Okay, so we're doing something very specific with each and every practice or sequence of practices that we're offering again to ourselves or to our students. Even something like We Rise, the 28 days of meditation, is a krama. It's in essence the same practice every day, but is it really? Or am I in some way creating a journey that everyone gets to go on so that we end up more evolved, more enlightened, more self-aware, with a richer experience of practice at the end than we had at the beginning. So overarching, our methodology for sequencing, specifically for teaching, but it also obviously applies to any sequencing we might put together for ourselves. So some of the components of a Vinyasa Krama practice include breaking it down into what we call the 5 essentials of a practice, which are asana, shavasana, pranayama, And in that category of pranayama, I also include orientation to the breath, because not every orientation of breath or breath technique is pranayama, but we'll kind of subsume it into this bracket of pranayama, and meditation. So those are the 4 things that we're doing in our practice, the 4 essentials. The 5th essential is bhavana. Bhavana, in my opinion, is the most important element in a practice. It's our reason for practicing. It's our meaning. It's our intention. It is the purpose that we're showing up to this practice to fulfill. So bhavana is so much more than just a nice quote or a sort of random heart-opening practice or something along those lines. It's not just a flavor. It's not just a theme. It is what we're here to accomplish. It's our purpose for the practice. It's our why, in essence. And the other 4 essentials are our how. So we've got our 5 essentials, and then we break down each of those essentials as well. For example, when we're looking at asana, we have 6 different categories of asana that we get to choose from, and we want to choose wisely. Okay? We also have a plethora of techniques, including pranayama techniques, which consist of some breath work, bandha work, mudra work, also working specifically with the vayus, which are directions in and around the space of the body through which prana flows that facilitates different functionality in the body and in the subtle body, also in the mind. We have all of these different components, and vinyasa krama takes us from just sort of throwing paint on a canvas and crossing our fingers that something cool will happen with it. And it turns us into a very skillful, very intentional artist with our sequencing. I'm going to consult my notes here to just see if there's anything else that I wanted to be sure to mention in this recording. So we work with our categories of asana, we work with our 5 essentials, and we also look at the basic blueprint of what we call a complete Tantric Hatha practice. So that sequence of events, how does it in general want to play out, that's going to be more common than not the most effective progression. Last thing that I want to touch on, and then I will wrap it up and move on to a little explanation about the next module, is that we model our teaching with the vinyasa krama modality or methodology after nature. We model our teaching after nature and some specific qualities of nature. 1, efficiency, okay? An apple tree only grows apples, and it does so with as much efficiency as possible. It's not going to start sprouting roses just because roses happen to be pretty. It's not going to grow more branches than it can actually support. It is going to do everything in its power to make sure that its purpose as an apple tree is fulfilled by not wasting any time or energy on anything that isn't necessary. My dog. You'll get a lot of him. So we want to be efficient, like nature. And we also want to be elegant. So again, not adding anything that's unnecessary, but really paring it back. When I think of elegance, I often think of simplicity, clean lines, a certain amount of poise, a confidence that I am more than enough just as I am. This practice is sublimely simple. It's delivering everything it needs to, holding nothing important back, but also indulging in nothing unnecessary. Efficiency and elegance. This right here, in my opinion, is what transforms a good teacher into a masterful teacher. So getting very clear on the bhavana, the why of the practice, and then utilizing your skills effectively, what you have available to you, layering in just the right amount of technique and tool to help fulfill the purpose, the why of the practice, but always bearing in mind less is more, less is more, less is more, simplify, pare back, edit, trim. Elegance and efficiency. Spiritual, alchemy. Wise, progression. Taking us from where we are to a better place, very intentionally. Okay, more soon.